Intuition. Um, I I struggle with this a lot. Um, I don't know if it was just subconsciously. I think for a long time it's been really subconscious that I've just been like, hey, intuition is not something that I can trust. So that's just dumb, and we don't do that. And that's because of anxiety, which I'll get to in a minute. But I don't think I don't know how many times I've like explicitly have had that conversation with myself of like, you can't listen to intuition, just don't. Um, it kind of came on my radar again in a different way recently, 3 to 4 weeks ago, I think. It's been a bit. It's been sitting there for a bit. I just didn't even think about having a discussion about it. But Rick Rubin, music producer, Rick Rubin, who's fantastic, and I enjoy the work that he's done and his contribution to many great albums of our time. But I just saw a reel of him on Instagram talking to somebody on a podcast, and he was just talking about how like there's a lot of forces at work that we don't have explanations for. And he's like, intuition's one of them. If you have a feeling, you should just do it. And like, there isn't rhyme or reason. There isn't a logic behind it. Just you know, again, there are forces at work that we can't explain, and just like how you have a feeling, and you should just do something with that feeling. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know what, I should try to do that more. The problem is, as I quickly found out, as I was trying to apply that today, I can't. I think I had like a feeling like, oh, what if? Man, I don't even remember how it happened. I was gonna go. I did. I went for a bike ride. I went on 6 Mile and ripped up 6 Mile a little bit. And I had this thing before, like right before I was leaving, of like the Linkin Park song. There's some lyrics that say "Don't go." I think it's from Hybrid Theory, but maybe it's I can't think of the name of the song right now, or maybe it's Just Go. But in my head, I just heard Chester and the melody "Don't Go," and I was like, "Should I not go for this bike ride? Why?" And then I start spiraling really quickly of like, why would I not go for this bike ride? This bike ride would be great. Like, blah blah blah. There's nothing wrong. Like, but there was a part of me like I didn't have my air pump, so I didn't have my air pressure like accurate as to where it would be, especially for that trail. It's really dry. There's like some exposure and some dicey situations, and I was thinking like I don't know. I just got in my head. It just really quickly just spirals, and whatever. So like I have those moments so many times in a day, and so it was a good reminder of like just this weird thing of like just follow your intuition about following your intuition, like how. But I guess I do that anyway. But oh man, it's just with my anxiety, it is really difficult to follow intuition because I have random thoughts about stuff for no reason, it seems, none that I can discern, all the time. Just like my mind just plays out sequences of just like, what if that were a thing? Or what if this was a thing? Or like, what if this horrible thing happened? And I just have to like distract myself and think about something else. And be like, why am I thinking about that? Like I start entertaining a whole scene or like a story, and it's like, why? Why do why do I need to do that? And I have to like, it doesn't take long to stop, and it doesn't get very sticky either. But it's just like, why is that a thing? And so it happens all the time where I have these random thoughts that I'm like, okay, but does that mean anything? It doesn't mean that it means anything. I don't know what it means. It doesn't mean anything, maybe. So I have trained myself to ignore my intuition, but it becomes this balance of like, I think anytime that I've chalked up listening to intuition as a good thing has been like, well, that wasn't really intuition. That was like you saw this and that gave you a signifier of this thing. And I think that's different. Like saying, oh, I've got a bad feeling about this person. It might not be a feeling. It may be consciously or subconsciously you have picked up on the fact that you are making judgments based on the way they look, the way they act, the way they talk, the way they smell, the way they move, what they're wearing, what they look like, where they just came from, if they turned to cold. Like, there's so many things that you can just add up to just like, I don't know if I trust that person. but really there's like seven things that you have made these really quick judgments about. And I think that's different than intuition. I think it's I have made a judgment, and intuition in that circumstance would be no, you should trust that person, or you should go and whatever. Like throw your logic away. Basically, is how I feel about intuition. And I think that it's not foolproof. I don't believe necessarily in the same thing that Rick Rubin was talking about. Like, oh, there's powers at work, and I'm like, but it made me think, just in like I don't know how to call it, a spiritual sense, but it just made me think that like, okay, why can't I tap into my own intuition more? And then once I started thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, that's why, that's why you can't, because you can't trust your heart or your head. I cannot trust my emotions. I can't trust my logic. With the way that I work with my anxiety is really like it doesn't work. Like I'm still figuring it out because yeah, I don't know how to do anything. Like what it's really difficult because like I'll start to do something and I'll use logic and I'll write down a list, or we can have a pros and cons list or whatever. But then if it's something that has to do with emotions as well, and they also need to be considered, that seems to win. And it's like, but why? Like, there's a time and a place where that does win, and there's a time and a place where it shouldn't be considered. And sometimes I can't figure out which one to listen to. I can't figure out in this situation, do I listen to the pros and cons list or do I listen to my heart? Because I think they're both important. But there are so many times where I'm like, I don't know which one I'm supposed to listen to with this situation right now. I can't figure it out. What am I do? What do I do? I don't know. So that's a thing. It just again like with me and the way that my anxiety, the way it manifests, and the way that I cope with it or lack thereof of coping, I very frequently am just like I don't know what to do. So when I have a feeling about a thing that doesn't mean anything necessarily, my dryer just shut off, so it got really quiet. Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily mean anything, and I don't know what to do with that. What do I do with that information, right? I don't know. I do not know. So I feel like I have to develop an intuition about. Is that? I don't even know if that's correct. Develop an intuition in order to use or lose my no. How do I had it worded better before? I have to like develop an intuition about when and where and how to use my intuition, and just like be like, yeah, this is not the time where you do that, or I don't know. It gets meta and layered, and it's probably unnecessary. But my mind is creating a really complex thing that I can't even follow. But those are the reasons why I feel like just following my intuition is really difficult. However, it would save me a lot of time if I made decisions that were not as logical, or I didn't consider the two parts of like logic and emotion. If I wasn't considering those two things as consistently as I am, it would be a lot easier to just make decisions based on intuition, and that's it. Obviously there's a balance, but my balance is like so imbalanced because I rarely use intuition in a way that I feel like I am using it. Like maybe I'm using it subconsciously without really being totally aware of it. But I think what Rick Rubin was talking about is a very conscious and aware awareness of how you use that, and be like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, what do you feel? I feel this way. Okay, do that then. Just don't question it anymore. That's it, right? Because sometimes your intuition tells you like immediately, like that's no good, and you don't second guess it. So it's something that I definitely want to think about more, and I have on my mind as to like how to maybe use that effectively in my life, and just consider that more often, especially because it can save a lot of time and save a lot of anxiety if I apply it correctly. And again, it doesn't mean that the results of that decision based on intuition are always going to be the results you want or the results you think you want, but it possibly could help.